There's a lot of Beatles fans out there that will tell you that the holy grail for them is to own a copy of the original Butcher's Sleeve signed by all four Beatles. But there's another bunch of fans, and me included, who would say that the holy grail for them is to actually meet one of the Beatles. Now, to meet a Beatle takes either a lot of luck or a lot of endeavour, and usually a little bit of both. To meet a Beatle twice is just pure greediness, and to meet a Beatle 3 times is like borderline stalking. Now, I'm not a stalker, but I have met Paul McCartney 3 times on 3 separate occasions, and come and join me for this video and I'll tell you how it happened, what I said to him and what he said to me. Hello everyone and welcome back to Beatley Tone's Beatles channel. Lovely to have you here. Thanks for joining me for this video and I hope you're all doing well out there. Now in today's video I'm going to be telling you about 3 occasions when I've managed to meet Paul McCartney and have a little bit of a chat with him. 2 of those occasions were ones where there was quite a bit of endeavour involved and a little bit of hardship, and the other occasion was just so lucky or fluky that you're hardly going to believe how it happened. I'm also going to tell you about one occasion where I had a really near miss. So I'm taking you all the way back to December 2005. Now, at that time, I used to be part of a Beatles fan forum. It wasn't a big forum. There was probably maybe about 50 to 70 regular posters on it, but I used to post on it quite a lot. So when I got into work each morning, I used to log on to the fan forum as soon as I thought I could get away with it. Well, on this particular day in December, so I had a private message from a lady called Anne who lived in Michigan, USA, and she sent me a message and it said, "Tony, did you know that Paul McCartney was doing a book signing at Waterstones in London on Friday?" The internet is a wondrous beast, and you can be told something by someone you've never met who lives on the other side of the world about something that's actually happening in your backyard. As it happened, I didn't know that Paul was doing a book signing at Waterstones on the Friday, but I did know that he'd written a children's book called High in the Clouds, and that was coming out soon. So I logged on to the Waterstones website, and lo and behold, all the information was there. Paul McCartney will be in our Piccadilly store on Friday lunchtime signing copies of his book High in the Clouds. And it kind of boasted, this is a wristband event, as if to say there certainly won't be any bundles involving smelly old rock fans trying to get in, thank you very much. But what they actually meant by it being a wristband event, it meant that I had to get myself down to the Waterstones store on the Wednesday at 9 o'clock and get in a queue, and they would be handing out wristbands to the first 100 people in the queue, and those 100 people would get in on the Friday to meet Paul McCartney and get their book signed. And I'm thinking, well, look, 100 people out of all the thousands, no, millions of Beatles fans in the UK that could potentially be in that queue for a wristband. 100 wristbands is not very much, and chances were pretty slim. But I was thinking, this is like a once in a lifetime opportunity to get to meet a bloke that had meant so much to me for about 30 years. So I had to pull out all the stops to try and get one of those wristbands. I planned to get to Waterstones at 4 AM, and back then in 2006, tubes in London didn't run during the night, so I had to order a taxi. So I ordered a cab to come and get me at 2:45 in the morning, and I went to bed early on the Tuesday, but I couldn't sleep. I just lay there tossing and turning, playing over in my mind both the scenarios of getting a wristband and not getting a wristband. And about 2 o'clock I kind of just gave up, went and had a shower, got dressed, and then waited by the front door for my cab to arrive. Anyway, I arrived at Waterstones in Piccadilly just before 4 a.m. and I joined the queue, and looking down the queue I could see there was quite a few people between me and the doors of the shop. There were some people asleep in sleeping bags near the front of the queue. I was trying to count how many people there was between me and the front of the queue, but it was kind of really hard to do because I couldn't really see how many people were asleep at the front, and people kept leaving the queue and joining the queue. I'm not sure why, probably to, go to the toilet or something like that, but there was no way I was leaving my position, and people were just sort of, stamping their feet either out of impatience or just to keep warm because it was just absolutely freezing. This is December and it's London and it was really cold. When I did try and count, I was kind of up into the sort of the high 80s, so I knew it was going to be like touch and go. And I hadn't got a clue whether I was really in that first 100 people. So you picture the scene, it's 4 a.m. on a dark December morning, it's absolutely freezing. When you're in that situation, you get talking to the people that are around you in the queue, and in front of me there were some young girls that were sporting Beatles sweatshirts. They were too young to even have been born the last time Paul McCartney had a hit. And that always amazes me, the power and the draw of the Beatles that spreads across age groups. You see them at Paul McCartney concerts, these young people that have gone with their dads or mums or whatever, and they know the words to every song. That always amazes me. Directly behind me, there was a couple from Connecticut who had literally flown into Heathrow about 2 hours before just for a stab at meeting their hero, which I just found was absolutely incredible. I mean, Beatles fans, they're either mental or just so loyal. I talked to this couple from Connecticut quite a lot, just talking about stories of, seeing Paul in concert and about albums and songs and all this sort of thing, just to, pass the time. I was really hoping that they weren't going to have to go back to Connecticut before Friday, but, they were behind me in the queue, and if I got wristband number 100, I wouldn't be complaining, but I did really hope that they were going to get their wristbands too. I was listening to the conversation of a bloke a few people in front of me, and he was one of these like professional signing attenders. These are the people that would go to the signing of a cheque if it meant that they could get something that they could flog on eBay. And he was boasting about being on this very spot a few weeks ago when Britney Spears was here signing her book, and he was boasting about how much he sold that for on eBay. And just listening to him just made my stomach churn. These events should be for real fans, not for leeches like him. Contemplating the thought that he might get a wristband and I might miss out was just too horrible to imagine. Paul McCartney fans are quite a considerate bunch, and I never realised that. It wasn't until it got to about 7 a.m. that the Ghetto Blasters came on and they were churning out Beatles and Wings tunes, and the queue sort of bounced along moderately, either out of pure pleasure or just trying to keep warm. By 8 o'clock, I think that I had icicles actually dripping from my nose. It was that cold. And I looked behind me in the queue, and the queue kind of stretched as far as you could see. And there was just no way that some of these people in that queue behind were getting anywhere near getting into this signing. They weren't getting a wristband at all. And I'm not really sure why they persisted being there. Maybe they were hoping that people would get fed up and drop out of the queue and they'd be able to move up, or maybe that they were just hoping that people in front of them would die of hypothermia. So at about 8:30, some staff from Waterstones came out and they started counting people in the queue, and they counted me, and I didn't know what that meant, but in my head I was saying, well, I'm in. I'm in. 'Cause they've counted me. But then they went on to explain that the first 100 people were going to get a blue wristband, and the people with blue wristbands were definitely going to meet Paul McCartney on Friday. The next 50 were going to get a red wristband, and they would be, firstly, if any of the people with the blue wristbands didn't turn up on the day, then they would be next in line. They would take their place as if anyone's not going to turn up. But also, they said that when Paul comes to do his signing, he's going to be in the store for 90 minutes. So if when he's seen all the people with blue wristbands, there's still some time left, he would see as many of the red wristband people as he could before he had to leave. So the fact that they'd counted me didn't mean that I was in at all. With the efficiency of a German banker, bang on 9 o'clock, the Waterstones doors opened and we started shuffling towards them. Now, we moved very, very slowly and very orderly, and it was all very seemly, which surprised me a bit when you consider what was at stake. As we moved, there was plenty of talk amongst ourselves, will we, won't we, as we sort of edged ever nearer to the Holy Grail. At 9:20, I got through the doors, and I could see a table that had been set out where Waterstone's staff were behind it handing out the wristbands. I could see the Tupperware pot that had the wristbands in it, but I couldn't see how many were left in it, but I could see that they were still blue. Eventually it was my turn, and this very nice lady from Waterstones put the wristband on me, and this is it. This is the actual wristband, and she said, whatever you do, don't take it off between now and Friday, because if the seal is broken, you won't get in. And that was basically a precaution to stop people from selling wristbands on eBay. She said, now don't be late, will you? And I thought, are you kidding? Be late? There's no way I'm going to be late for this. I had a quick glance over at the Tupperware box, and there were 2 wristbands left in the box, and the couple from Connecticut who were behind me in the queue got it, and I was so chuffed for them, but not quite as chuffed as I was for myself. I sort of sped away down Piccadilly heading off to work. I stopped and I rang Mrs. Beatley Tone and told her that I'd got a wristband, and I could hardly believe that this was actually going to happen. I was going to be meeting Paul McCartney. I was looking in the reflection of a shop window as I was calling her, and there was 2 of me looking back at me. I was beside myself. As soon as I got back to the office, I logged on to my Beatles forum and posted a thread saying I'm meeting Macca on Friday, and there were lots of responses from members of the forum, some virtual backslapping and congratulations from all corners of the globe. And why do we call it why do we say all corners of the globe? Since when has a globe got corners? But you know what I mean. So after the longest Thursday in the history of Thursdays, Friday eventually arrived, and I got into work early that day to kind of compensate for the long lunch hour that I was going to be taking. And I don't know why I bothered, really, because I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't do any work. I couldn't concentrate because all I was thinking about is what I was going to be doing that lunchtime. I mean, normally at lunchtime I would be on that Beatles forum talking about the Beatles, but this lunchtime I was actually going to be meeting one of them. I'm not that great at meeting celebrities. I mean, who is? What do you say to them? Because you don't know them personally, and it's really hard to talk to them without sounding like a bit of a sycophant. But if you don't talk about something to do with their career, what the hell do you say to them? Because that's all that you really know them by. You don't really know them personally. So I had to think long and hard about what I was going to say to Paul when I was in front of him, and try not to sound like a knob. When I say I'm not very good at meeting celebrities, it makes it sound like I've got this huge, great celebrity meeting CV. I haven't. I've met a few people off the telly, and I've met a few footballers from time to time. And I've met Yoko, and I met Yoko in 1986 when she did a gig in London, and I went to the stage door after the gig, and there was about 50 or 60 of us, and Yoko came out and she was speaking to everyone. She was really lovely, and when it got to my turn, I just said, "Hi Yoko, really great show," and she said, "Thanks very much," and she signed my program. But when I walked away, I thought that was absolutely pathetic. I thought that there was so much that I wanted to say to her, but I just lost my nerve. So I was kind of thinking, I've got this opportunity now to meet Paul. I want to say something, not something deep and meaningful, because that would be ridiculous. But I knew Paul that had just finished a US tour, so I was going to ask him about that. And if I got the chance, I was going to ask him about whether he'd considered doing the songs 1985 and Backseat of My Car live, because I'd never seen him do those songs. So that was my kind of planned question that I had sort of ready for when it was my turn to speak to Paul. So on the Friday lunchtime, got myself down to Waterstones, got in another queue with all the other wristband holders. Eventually they let us in, and they led us off to this sealed area in the store where we bought the book. Now, to be honest, if Paul hadn't been signing this book, a kiddie's book, even though it's written by Paul McCartney, isn't something that I would normally buy. And to be honest, I don't really collect autographs either. But as he was going to be doing a signing, I took my CD booklet from Chaos and Creation in the backyard, and I was hoping to get him to sign that. And I also took a digital camera, so I had both of those things stuffed in the pocket of my coat. So once we purchased the book, we were moved to another area of the store on a different floor, and we were told that Paul wouldn't be long. He was doing a reading of his book to some school children. We were told we had to leave our coats and bags and everything in that room. And when we were we were briefed on the rules, security rules. We were told that when we were in front of Paul, we weren't allowed to ask him to sign anything else apart from the book. We weren't allowed to reach in our pockets for anything, and there was to be absolutely no photography. So that was my little plan of me standing with my arms round Macca, holding up my signed copy of the Chaos and Creation booklet out the window. We're also told by the Waterstone staff that we would have approximately 90 seconds with Paul. So what I was going to say to him, I had to make it count. At 90 seconds, not very long. And they kind of helped a little bit by saying, don't waste your time with him by telling him that you love him, because he knows you. He knows you love him. That's why you're here. Despite the disappointment of the CD booklet and the photo thing, I was excited beyond all realms of excitement. Very soon, Paul entered the room, gave a little wave. Everyone gave him a bit of a cheer, and he sat down at a desk, and the first person sort of strode up and got their book signed. And at this point I'd seen Paul many times in concert, and I'd even been to the premiere of Rock Show, but I'd never seen him so close, and I was going to get a whole lot closer very quickly indeed. It was interesting watching the other fans going up to meet Paul and how they reacted. I watched a woman who was probably in her late 60s stand in front of his desk and just burst into tears before she'd even said a word, or he said a word to her. I wondered whether she was like a first generation Beatles fan, because they were sort of prone to that sort of thing. And there was a time when I would have thought that just bursting into tears was just stupid, but not today. You could feel the cocktail of tension and overwhelming joy in the air in that room. It was absolutely thick of it. So I didn't think it was stupid this time. And Paul just gave her a cuddle, and he got his handkerchief out of his actual Paul McCartney trouser pocket and gave it to her. And it was clear that he was used to this sort of thing happening all the time. The bloke directly in front of me in the queue started to walk towards Paul's desk, and he was holding the hand of his little boy, who was about 3 years old, and they'd given Paul some toast and jam to eat because it was lunchtime after all, and even rock royalty have to eat something. And I can distinctly remember Paul asking the little boy if he wanted some jammy toast, but I'm standing there and I'm really nervous now, but really excited at the same time. And I'm just thinking to myself, in about 2 minutes' time, I'm going to be standing in front of and speaking to, in a one-to-one situation, I'm going to be speaking to Paul McCartney out of the Beatles, just me, Tony, the drummer in pub rock band So Last Century, and you, Paul McCartney, the bass guitarist out of the Beatles. And then I saw the bloke and the little boy walking away from Paul's desk. At last it was my turn, and I started to stride purposefully towards Paul's desk. Paul looked really good close up. That's not to say that he looked like a complete gargoyle from a distance, but what I mean is he looked much younger than his years. His hair was dyed a chestnut brown to hide the grey, and he looked as smart as you like in his grey suit and white shirt. He stood up, offered an outstretched hand. My heart just wanted to say, I bloody love you, man, but luckily my head stopped that from happening. He said, hi, what's your name? I said, Tony. He said, really nice to meet you, Tony. And my head's going, oh my God, Paul McCartney just called me Tony. I said, nice to meet you too, Paul. And then I'm thinking, I've just called Sir Paul McCartney just plain old Paul, like he's just an ordinary mere mortal, or the bloke that trims my hedges, and that was only a small backslap away from calling him Macca. And in my mind I'm thinking, go on, say you can call me Macca. He didn't. I handed him my book to sign, and then it was my chance to ask him the question that I had planned. So I said, how was the US tour? He said it was really great, we had a fantastic time, we only got back last week. So I said, any plans to bring the tour to the UK? And he said, yes, we're looking at venues at the moment, both here and abroad, and we're looking at doing some songs that we've never done live before. And when he said that, that was the perfect lead into the second part of my question. And I just said, you should do 1985 and Backseat of My Car. And he said, yeah, you like those two? And I said, yeah, they're both fantastic. And with that, he handed me back my book, and he said, thanks for coming, Tony. And I was just thinking, oh my God, he's just thanked me for coming to one of the best moments of my life. And then he said, have a good Christmas. And I said, you too, Paul, thanks very much. And then I was gone. And it wasn't much, but it was something, and it was something to me. You know, it wasn't anything deep and meaningful, because you just don't say anything deep and meaningful, but you know, I just had a conversation with Paul McCartney, and it might have been 90 seconds, it might have been a bit more, it might have been a bit less, I'm not sure, it's difficult to tell, but it did feel like it was a long time while I was actually stood there in front of him. And as I walked away, I thought to myself, that was really cheeky to say, you should do 1985 and Backseat in my car. I mean, who the hell do I think I am? He's set list writer. I mean, I could have said, by the way, when you do the UK tour, don't bother doing Hey Jude and Let Me Roll It, because you play it every bloody time. Anyway, off I went, and I was, you know, as I walked away, I was really quite a little bit shaky, very emotional, but really, really happy. If I'd consumed a great big mountain of Class A drugs, I don't think I would have been as high as I felt at that particular moment. And this is the book that he signed, and I was so busy making sure that I asked my question that I didn't bother to ask him to sign it to Tony. So he just signed his name, and after that I was a little bit annoyed with myself for not asking him to put to Tony. But that was the story of my first meeting with Paul. As for the UK tour of 2006 that we spoke about, that never actually happened. But when I did see him in 2010, he did do 1985. Coincidence? Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. I know full well that Paul would have forgotten about me the minute that I turned my back and walked away from his desk. But I won't forget a single second of the day that I met Paul McCartney. I'd definitely take that one to the grave. Now I know exactly what you're thinking. You're thinking that was a really long story to get to 90 seconds with Paul McCartney. And you're absolutely right. But I wanted to give you a full flavour of the whole experience, including the chase for the wristband to actually get in. So consequently, the video is massively overrun. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to hold over the story of my other two meetings with Paul and the very near miss to the next video, which is going to drop very shortly. And I can assure you that the stories won't be anywhere as detailed as this one. And that other video is going to include the amazing stroke of luck that I had meeting Paul on one of those occasions. Now, have you ever met a Beatle or someone of that ilk? Do tell me about it down in the comments. I'd love to hear. It doesn't have to be a Beatle, a celebrity hero. Tell me about your celebrity wins. I want to hear about them. As you know, I read all your comments and I always try and answer them. If you're seeing this channel for the first time, we do lots of different types of videos on this channel. We do stories about being a Beatles fan, like this one. We also do album reviews and song reviews and rankings and that sort of stuff, and we do news items as and when they crop up. So if you are seeing this channel for the first time, or maybe you've seen it 50 times and not bothered subscribing, please consider subscribing to the channel and supporting it. That would be absolutely fantastic. Give the video a like and hit that notification bell and you won't miss a thing. Thanks very much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks also for being part of my channel. I really appreciate you being here, and I'll see you for part 2 very, very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.